Thank you very much. I mean, what a journey the day's been. I'd like to just remind us all where we started. We started this morning with what I think is a very good snapshot of what the cutting edge is like in MIT, and probably the cutting edge in our industry in the world. And that painted a very interesting and different picture, I think, to the one that we see every day at USB and around the world in other places as well. So it's interesting to see that. I don't think we want to immediately jump into every single technological advance that there is. And I think the last 4 case studies have really shown very well how we have very thoughtfully and in many cases actually applied some of those technologies and actually also already started to bring in many of the things that the students actually raised in terms of interaction and so on. So I think overall, I mean, I thought it was a very interesting discussion, the staff and the differences and some of the highlights of some of the similarities as well between the staff and the student panels. So it's been a very fascinating day, and I'm very pleased to hear those last 4 case studies and see some of the things that are happening. And I think we are going a long way to answering some of the questions that have been raised. And I would say once again that I think with the student presentations this morning, that it was very clear that we're doing something right because they were excellent, all of them. So, you know, I think a big round of applause to them, but also to everybody else who's contributed throughout the day. Thank you very much for the excellent presentations and paying attention to the tinkly bell and staying on time. Just to close, I would like to ask Professor Kumar if he would be willing just to come down and say a few closing remarks, not to sum up, but to just to give us a few closing remarks of what he thinks of the day's activities and maybe some closing words about where we could go from here. I don't know. Thank you, Professor Kumar.
The rich, rewarding, the amount I learned is just spectacular. This is just fantastic. You know, there was a time when I was scribbling some notes to myself. Then I ran out of paper to scribble on. So there was a time when a whole bunch of people, you know, we had invested a lot in education technology initiatives, and a bunch of folks from NSF came over, and they were meeting with 3 or 4 of us at MIT. And they said, "How do you know all this is working? You know, is there change happening? And then is it just the young faculty doing this?" And I said, "No, most of this, like John Belcher, isn't young." You know, and then I sort of quipped, you know, we were all chatting, the president was there, the provost, myself, a couple of people. So I quipped, I said, "Look, you know, the change has happened because learning has been outed at MIT. Teaching and learning has been outed at MIT, meaning suddenly it's okay in this research-intensive place to talk about teaching and learning, because every Wednesday I used to have a seminar where faculty would come and talk about what they were doing with active learning and talk about the students' experiences, which I had not seen before. No, and the typical stereotype you think of MIT as a research place is not happening. So for me, the indicator of change is that the quality of the discourse has changed. And this was the indication that was happening today. If this is happening, and you know, your Vice Chancellor is not here, but he was talking about transformation. If this is happening, I can tell you, whether you like it or not, transformation is happening in spades. And there were so many presentations I was thinking about some of the kinds of things that I learned, and lots of similarities with the kinds of issues and opportunities we're engaging with. You know, this is just remarkable. A couple of other quick, the student panels are just fantastic. So one of the things that something that came up in the flipped classroom presentation is presentations. And again, I want to say this, it's the whole change process is so systemic. We're bringing this technology, but if we continue with our old practice with this new technologies, bad things happen. So there's a lot of change. People are talking about the teacher's role, and we are remarking. And I remember, you mentioned the steel classrooms, the round tables, the big discussion. And the initial evaluations, student evaluations on the courses were not happy. They were not good. Because what was happening was you had these round tables, you had the screens, but people were continuing to teach in the standard lecture PowerPoint mode. So it was death by PowerPoint with all this stuff. And so if that didn't, and so the evaluations are mapped to who was teaching and how they were teaching. So if you don't change, so it's a systemic phenomenon. I'm preaching to the choir over here, but that's something to be really mindful of. Couple of, two more things. One is assessment, which was touched on in various ways. Assessment is a holy grail in this business. I mean, there are a lot of stuff that those remarkable predictive analytics presentations. There's a lot going on. Some I have personal interest in because of stochastic processes and how you can predict them. But the question remains, what do you do if you are able to predict? You get all this data, and it says, then what is the kind of action that you follow? Are your courses open enough? Is the architecture of the course such that it can modify itself or moderate itself based on the data that is coming back? That's the question. But the assessment, one of the things that I find with learning management systems, including Moodle, edX, everything, the assessments are very, very tightly coupled to the course. And part of the design challenge is to pull them apart, because these assessments have to go. So this is why the open architecture, service architecture. You say, because you want to create assessment banks so that a teacher who's authoring a course can go find an assessment and put it over there. Yes. Right now they're designed and they're too tightly coupled to the course, to the program. So you have to. So that's a design challenge. We've been doing a lot of work in that area, and it's something to keep in mind. One last thing, I noticed. So I'm thinking that these sessions have been videotaped. So is there a plan to continue this? No, not the event. Online. So what I would say, and this is something I started doing, this session with all its richness, the presentations, the materials, should be online, right? With the presentations, with the text, then the discussion should continue. I mean, so the discourse, I mean, that's the only 2 bits I'll offer, because the conversation needs to continue behind that, so that this is not a sort of a broken process, because this is what happens, because around some of these areas, more projects are going to happen, the case studies that were presented. So I would really be looking, if you do this online, you will find me on that site, and you'll find a lot of people on the site. So I really want to congratulate you. And I know in all these sessions, it's nice to come and talk, but this is professional development for me. That's going good. So thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, and please don't go away, Professor Kumar, because we have a small gift and a token from USB to thank you very much for your engagement and activity.
Thank you.
And I would like to thank everybody here for their staying power and having stayed for the full day. I particularly acknowledge the Executive Director of the Fiji Higher Education Commission, Richard Waugh, for staying with us for the whole day. So I hope there was something to take away from the day, and especially also to people who've connected from around the region. This has been live streamed throughout the 12 member countries of USB, so it's been going out across a large part of the world and all of our regions. So thank you all very much for attending and putting in the effort, and for asking such excellent questions, and again the presentations. So thank you, and have a good evening. Thank you.